We'll get started on August 26th, the Transportation Policy Committee for this month. And we do have a quorum, so we can go ahead and see if there's any public comments. And we'll also recognize people online joining us also. And I don't see any people expressing interest in making comments, public. So we're going to item number 4, which is the approval minutes of the July 22nd meeting. Anybody got any questions, comments regarding the draft that was included in your packet? No questions.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Jay, approval. Second, David. Any, we'll go for vote, I guess. No comments, questions on the motion for approval. So all those who are in favor of this, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved. Item number 5 through 7 are amendments, and I would I can defer to Bob unless Jan has comments.
Defer to Bob is fine.
Okay, so Bob, if you don't mind, maybe you want to go one at a time or all three and just give the background, we can vote.
Well, these are projects that are on the 23 through 28
Right.
tip,
27.
but
Yours is 28, ours just goes through 27.
okay.
God knows why, it's just a thing. And you should have in your packets something that looks like this chart.
These projects are all on upcoming weddings. I think the number 7, the bridge painting one, is a state only contract, and that was let in June or July. But the rest of them the other two have federal funds, and I think they're November letting, so we want to get them in the tip.
Okay. All right. Just questions, comments from anybody from the committee, including the one online. Any questions on those amendments?
I do have a question about amendment number 3, which is item 7. The way this is your markup of the chart, and this shows that it's CM 203-1. That is which is a standard overlay project that is the state only one. And then the one below it, BP 2023-1, is on the November letting, and that does in fact have federal funds in it.
Okay.
All right, just.
Can I get back with you?
Sure.
Now, I get to the office, I'll double check.
Yeah, and this is what you sent me, so
Okay.
just, I'm reasonably sure that you tend to get it right, so. But if you can just check and let me know, and we'll operate on the premise that this is correct.
Okay, any other questions?
So it is correct that you have here, and that's really important.
What I have here is what Bob sent me, so I didn't edit it in any way. So Bob's pretty careful and usually doesn't get stuff like that. That's
So
fine.
as long as the accurate
Right.
chart will
I
get to
think we can say,
Bob Innes. It's,
okay,
you know,
We'll
if
see to it,
this
yeah.
is it, then that's fine.
subject to Bob Nelson's confirmation that this is the correct order, and
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll find that.
then we'll go from there if there's a correction that needs to be made.
So any motion will make sure we reflect that. Sure. Did you say confirmation by Bob Nelson or Bob Innes?
Bob Innes needs to get the verified correct version of this.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? regarding just the background information for items 5 through 7. Okay, if not, I'll take any motions. Again, it's subject to a confirmation of information by Bob Minutes regarding the chart for the amendments. Anybody want to? I'll take number 5. Will be amendment number 1.
Approve.
Okay, Ryan. Any seconds?
Second.
Okay, Jerry. Those who agree, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Seeing none. Motion approved. Again, number 6, similarly, amendment number 2, but subject to give the motion to be reflecting following this confirmation. Take a motion.
Approve.
Okay, Ryan.
I'll second.
Okay. Dan. All those who are in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none. Number 7 would be for amendment number 3. Any motion? Okay, Jerry, I need a second. Okay, Bob. Those who in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Opposed? Seeing none, so that's also being approved. Again, subject to Bob Maynard's confirmation of some information.
Actually, it's Bob Nelson who's going to confirm, and then we'll convey that to Bob.
Oh, okay. Corrected, staying corrected. Yeah.
Sorry.
We could communicate, yeah. If that's okay for all those people who make the motions. All right, number 8. Number 8 is the draft, the MLTP, the Metropolitan Long-Range Transportation Plan. And that is something been keeping you all apprised. And some of you do serve on the project steering committee. It looks like many of you, most of you. But just for the record, for this technical committee, the draft, there's different chapters in the plan, in this draft plan, been distributed to the project steering committees for review, and now also there's some chapters we are like finalizing, and the draft will be put on for public review for publication and for public review and comment. So Jen, you want to make any comments on that item number 8?
Yes, I'm afraid so. First of all, what you've been seeing in the drafts, and this is chapter 3. I only have a couple of copies because it's going to get reformatted. All of this is going to go into a different format as of Monday. So it will be easier to read. There will be room for all of the illustrations and maps and so on. And it won't be a recapitulation of the format we used last time. So keep that in mind as you look at the drafts. It's not going to look like that next week. The other thing is that we have, and actually if you could pull it up, Greg, we have a PDF of chapter 3, which I will be sending out to you later. I've got a couple of copies if you want to just sort of pass them around. Whoops, sorry. And part of the reason that, oh good, they're in color. We've been having a printer issue this morning. So this should give you an idea. This is the one that has the discussion of the results of the survey that was done, a review of the demographic findings, exclusive of, the very straightforward stuff. And then finally, a discussion of the process and results of the population projections, which is toward the end. And one thing we would like to ask, we're not actually releasing this publicly until next Friday, the 2nd of September. If we can
Hello, excuse me, the audio has been muted. We can't hear anything.
Can you
There.
hear and see the screen share at this point?
Yeah, we can see the screen share and now we can hear. Thanks.
Okay, Jen, sorry you had to repeat.
Just very quickly, we're sort of scrolling through chapter 3 here, which I will be sending out as a PDF right after we're done here this morning. There's a demographic section that talks about various aspects of the census and or American Community Survey results that we have used as the basis for this document. We've drawn in some census information as well, and ongoing through a series of specific types of information relating to, minority residents, Hispanics, poverty, educational attainment, median income. Apparently Downs is just brilliant. And then onward, employment, language and proficiency. This comes out of the Title VI stuff, education, disability status, and let's see. And then we get into the future population. And Anna, since you're here, can you just sort of give a run through on what's in this section? And then we can talk a little bit about what would be in the appendix that has all of the material.
Yeah, definitely. Let me take my mask off here. So,
Can you go up a little bit closer to the microphone? It'd be easier.
yeah, for sure. So, just for preface, I did not create these projections. They were created by a university professor at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So, in this section right here, we have the projections, which are at the bottom. As Jen mentioned, we're going to do some reshuffling. And then some of the background and data that went into it. But of course, it's not going to be the entire result that the professor gave us. That would make a really, really long plan. So in the appendix, we're going to have the step-by-step documentation and what the professor created. But here it's just the actual projections, and then an overview on stuff like age, gender, birth rates, death rates, just like a brief overview of what those results show. But in the appendix will be the actual complete report.
So for most of you, since most of you do serve on the project steering committee, so if you recall at the most recent project steering committee for this project, staff did show highlights, of the projection. So this is more the you might want to not show this graph, but just more detail, all the background information, how the consultant reached the projection conclusion, and so just more information, more materials, background, for your understanding how that approach was taken to arrive at the conclusion. So take your time to read this over. As you know, projections is projections, right? It's not like we don't have a crystal ball to say, but it gives indications based on expertise of the consultant, based on different sources of data, census, or even IDPH, Illinois Department of Public Health, and DCEO, and other sources and considerations and factors in the projections, and that's what so this is got more background information for you, and so again, most of you do serve on the project steering committee, so you have seen the highlights before, but but for the benefit of both people who are not on the committee, so this gives you an idea what has been going on, and so that's all.
Ray, if I may, very briefly, the number there in the red box, we seem to have grabbed not quite the right point on the curve there, so it's actually the number from the census, which is 179 something. So we'll fix that before we send this out to you. Obviously, we have 3 possible conclusions, and as you'll see when you get a chance to read this through, Professor Greenlee from the U of I has done some analysis on a sort of straight line, relatively simple population projection, which is what gives us that deepest dive curve. And then the one a little bit above it, the 152 and change, is a slightly more complex population projection that is described and discussed in here and in more detail in his report, which will be part of the appendix. And then finally, he's evolved a scenario that produces that third curve at the top, starting from where we are now, that assumes that there is an effort to bring about migration at a higher rate among people, basically people of working age. So roughly, 25 once they're out of university, all the way to, retirement. So that is what gives us that extra 13,000 people and means that the drop is a little less drastic over the period. And he says that this is a conservative approach to this question as to how that might impact the final projection. You'll notice when you see the full report from him that is in the appendix, which we'll get out as soon as we can, that he shows one chart that shows some other projections from, as Ray mentioned, the Illinois Department of Public Health and DCEO. And those are higher. They're much rosier in terms of, they wind up going up rather than going down, in some cases fairly drastically. The problem that we have is that the data that they're using precedes the 2020 census. One of them was supposedly updated in 21, but that doesn't reflect the 2020 census. So those are all, these all sort of precede the analysis that was done by Dr. Greenlee. So I feel fairly confident that we can, given the kind of work that he's done, that we can look at this and say this actually is an improvement on the projections that were done by kind of a couple of the state agencies, because they didn't have all the information that he had. So that's laid out a lot more specifically and with more detail in the document, his report document, which is how long, Anna? 15 pages, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. So we're trying to keep the report itself kind of lean and mean, so we're going to put that in the appendix instead. But that's why we are where we are in terms of the outcomes. No one wanted to see this, but here it is. So it's just what it is, and we'll deal with it and figure out how to curve that line up rather than down.
So this is just, thank you, Anna. So this is just one of the chapters in the draft document. So the full document will be published for public review and comments, and so we will be doing that through different channels for public comments. In addition to posting on our website, there are different ways we do what I call the traditional and the non-traditional. There's paper copies, and also there's electronic versions for public access to the draft document. And so the period will be publishing that for public comments, by September 2nd, and then sort of 45 days review period. And then, of course, the whole document, the draft is still work in progress. It's a draft. So we'll continue working with the PSC, the Project Steering Committee, and we'll also keep this technical and the policy committees apprised of status.
One more comment on the draft. What you will not see in the materials that you've already received or that I'm sending out this afternoon is Chapter 6, which is the discussion of the intended, planned, potential projects on the part of the local governments. And we don't have all of the data yet. We're close, we're very close. But as soon as we have that, I'm basically, as soon as I have it all, I'm going to sit down and put that together and have that chapter available sometime next week. I'll send it out to you ahead of time, probably in the new format, but it will be part of the document that we produce on September 2nd, next Friday. And, that's just timing this time around. Enough said, basically. So look for that. I'll also be sending out this afternoon Chapter 5, which is the going by the sort of subsections, the focus areas of the plan, is goals, objectives, and strategies, and so on. That is going to be reformatted from the version you will see later. And I'm hoping that all of you will take a look and give me indications of things that you think can either be modified or possibly removed, and then tell me anything you want me to add in the way of objectives to sort of reach our various goals with respect to safety, sustainability, resilience, equity, and sort of economic impact of the transportation system. So some of those are more fully populated than others, and anything you want to suggest, we'll take a look and we'll talk, and by the time we get to the end of next week, we'll have it all in place. I think that's everything with respect to the draft, and
Yeah, the publication is really the key.
Right,
I think.
exactly.
Yeah, so, any
That's my
questions
question.
on the publication, of these documents? And, do we need a vote on this?
yes.
Okay, and so, entertain a motion for approval for the publication.
So moved.
Okay, David, any second? Those who are in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carry. And that goes to number 9, which is the MCRPC schedule update. So we gave a pretty good update. So it's still on schedule. Now we're at the stage, kind of toward the later part of the project schedule. And for public comments, you heard what Jen and I said. So we'll moving along. Still holding public meetings for the project steering committee meetings next month. Any questions?
May I just say with James here as well.
Yeah.
The completion and approval of the long-range transportation plan by the specified date is extremely important. It's in the best FAA's eyes one of probably the most important deadlines that an NPO has. So you are looking to approve it in October, which is within the 4-year timeframe. James, you want to?
Well, the critical hurdle here is if it's not approved by the deadline, then the tip freezes. And no new projects can be added until that time. So, within the 5-year period in which these things are usually updated, I think we're at the point now where it can we're at that hurdle and just gotta be crossed and make sure the public has involvement. And it sounds like from our meetings yesterday, and I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later.
Mhm.
But that's the key hurdle, is making sure that we don't have any delays. Unfortunately, that's what happened with the last one. So, the tip got froze and it just causes problems, not just from our perspective, but with IDOT, your local projects, adding those type of things. So I also want to reiterate, just making sure that, that if there is improvement or if there are suggestions that they kind of get that input needed.
Mhm.
Most of y'all are on that steering committee, so you probably have seen this a great deal. You're probably tired of looking at it from some of y'all, but this is the critical document. This is kind of what drives the ship going forward. So, I think that's any improvements or any involvement that you can have over these next few weeks just to get this across the hurdle is vital right now. So, and they heard our spiel yesterday. So,
Thanks, James and Tom. Yeah, so actually when we set the schedule, if you recall, we have scheduled, we took all this into consideration. And so we recognize the really drop that deadline is like late November, and that's why we want to schedule and kind of work it backward so that at the October meeting for the policy, that plan will be ready for for the policy committee's consideration of approval and adoption. Yeah. So we are this is like late August, so like in 2 months, we hope to be able to, we have to, take the plan to the policy committee for the consideration of adoption. And recognizing, we're building that buffer, just in case, because if we need, with some unforeseen circumstances, then a few weeks in like early November or something to work that in. So there's some buffer, but we don't want to take advantage of that buffer because of the holidays in November, which I hope you all do want to take.
One final thing is, the good can sometimes be the enemy of the best.
Yes.
So at this point, the document is pretty well almost in good shape. So one of my mentors reminded me that often. Sometimes we strive for the best, and I'm not opposed to that, but sometimes the good can be the enemy of the best. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're nearing this critical hurdle. So.
Right. Any more questions, discussion on the on item number 9 for the MLTP project? Seeing none, item number 10, that which may arise, any issues, any things anybody want to? Looks like you want to do. Okay.
Sorry.
No. Okay. Anybody? Seeing none, our next scheduled meeting is for September 16th, for the next technical committee.
Ray, if I may,
Yeah.
we have received the state program for the TIP. So September, assuming I can hold on to things, will be the occasion of re-amending the TIP so that we include all the state programs. We've talked about this before, we've done this before. So it will be an amendment that will also be sort of a replacement document for the current one, which does not have the state program. So let me know if there's anything else that needs to get amended at that time.
Okay.
Actually, Ray, if I can just say something, you may have heard that Connect Transit received a pretty substantial grant. It was about $13 million. Some of it will go towards purchasing new electric buses. Some will go to building a maintenance facility and a storage facility on our site. So that actually allows us to expand in the future. And as our electric fleet continues to build, we'll have more space in our garage to do that. And another is for a new service called microtransit. And microtransit is more of a neighborhood circulator that connects neighborhoods to the fixed route bus. The way the planning has been done in Bloomington for probably many years, the neighborhoods are very circuitous. It's very hard to get to a trunk line, a main line, to get the bus. So that's a good bit of exciting news. We also learned that through IDOT, the Division of Public Transit, we're getting another $2.7 million for electric infrastructure. So we're actually starting to plan somewhat of a microgrid to see if we can actually store some of the electric that we get through solar, and then maybe add some additional solar or wind projects so that we can power our electric vehicles with natural energy. So those are some exciting things that are happening for us.
We can absolutely include them as needed for the purposes of the TIP, as well as just saying, look at the school stuff.
And I think most of that is already in the tip. So.
Just in case, I'll double
Yeah,
check it
yeah.
and talk about whatever. Because I think that 13 million might have come after we.
Just announced a
I
few days
think we
ago.
applied for it in
Yeah,
advance.
the thing
So
is, there's
yeah,
always this sort of question about whether until the
It'll be funded,
application is
yeah.
confirmed.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take a look at that.
okay, yeah, sounds good.
So with the 13 million, how many more electric buses do you anticipate getting?
So 5 electric buses. We anticipate those will be about just over $1 million apiece, believe it or not. The facility itself, we're budgeting for about $8 million. And then the remainder would go towards microtransit vehicles. So that could be 5 to 10, depending on the cost of those vehicles at the time.
Right.
Yeah, so it's very exciting. And those will be electric microtransit vehicles as well. So fully accessible, low floor microtransit. It won't be a big bus like people like both sizes.
Right.
I think Peoria has kind of got into the microtransit activity, so.
They have, yep. They're a little bit sooner than we are. They did a planning project, I think last year that was just approved. So yeah, they're moving along as well.
Good news, for our area, and for the environment and everything else. Okay, anybody else? Good news, comments, questions? All right, I'm now entertain motion to adjourn the meeting. Jerry, Right, thank you. Those who are in favor, say aye. Opposed? Seeing none,